Hey everyone, my name is Dagan Koffler. I'm a builder renovator here in San Diego, California. And I'm here to talk about Sierra Pacific and Sierra Pacific windows and why I chose them in my own home. First, they're premium, excellent windows. They perform well, they're beautiful, there's a lot of customization for them, and that's partly why I use them, because we like to customize the colors, be able to do things in the inside as far as the rails, grids, you have a lot of customization. But once you start to learn about the story of who Sierra Pacific Industries and Sierra Pacific Windows are, you start to really see the benefits of using a company like them. It's a pretty amazing story, and we're able to see it firsthand, and it's pretty amazing. From like 20 miles away, we get to go to the forest land, watch a guy cut down ponderosa pine, and then literally goes down 20 minutes down the road to their millwork shop, which is a super efficient millwork cutting shop. And then it goes right down to their window factory, and all these components are in this beautifully organized window factory, and you get to see them all, these components come together. So the vertical integration is just one of the most unique setup I've ever seen in a company of that size especially. And then you get an amazing product that has always been under the hands of one company. So I feel super fortunate that I get to have them in my house. We spec them out for pretty much every single home that we do. Quality is amazing, the customization is amazing, and then even better so is most of what comes down to windows is having really good support, because windows are a complicated part of your home, and they have amazing support staff as far as in their local jurisdiction. I've had the same rep for multiple years now. It's on a first name basis, I can call them, text them. So that is wildly helpful, especially at volume that we do. We always need quick turnarounds. Clients have very specific guidelines for what they want. They've seen a certain style or grid that they've seen on Pinterest or Instagram, and we can do that. It's super easy for us. So anyways, I love them, and I'm really excited to show you them as they get to the final stages. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a walkthrough of the process of what their vertical integration means to a company like Sierra Pacific Windows. They own forest land all throughout California, but in and around Redding, which is their headquarters, they own vast amounts of forest land. So first and foremost, they're a big mill company, a big forestry land company. So we were fortunate enough to go out to one of the areas that they were cutting down certain trees right now. It's pretty amazing. We drove maybe 45 minutes, and we saw a handful of trees getting cut down. They're getting chopped down, they're getting cleaned up, and then they originally go right onto logging trucks. And the logging trucks go directly to the mill, which is in Redding as well. They get milled down to dimensional lumber, and then that lumber goes to a kiln dry, gets kilned for, it only takes a few days to pull all the moisture out of that. And then that lumber goes about 20 miles down the road to their millwork shop, which is where they mill baseboards, casings, crown molding, and then they also mill all of the window components for their own factory. From that journey out to the forest land where we saw trees being cut down to getting that component to the window factory is a matter of like a couple months, which is pretty amazing, and that wood only traveled maybe 30 miles. It's just so crazy because most window manufacturers have to buy that millwork from somewhere else, forest land from who knows where. The components are great, they're probably similar profiles, but they don't have the quality control, and they have to order each one of those 4 components from a millwork. So the amount of control and quality control that Sierra Pacific has in their window division is just amazing. The first time I was able to go and tour the factory, I was just like blown away. I was like, oh, whoa, like, so you guys literally get that lumber from, like, I can see it right here, and you bring it down to that factory that I can see over there, and then you bring it to the other factory right over there, and then my window is ready to go and shipped. And it's like, holy crap, that's amazing. So I was blown away from the first time, and I wanted to share sort of my impression of it, because I've been using them for a long time, and I knew a little bit of the backstory, but I don't think I knew the extent of how they've developed these systems so perfectly over the years. The vertical integration, it's above and beyond anything I've ever seen. It's really amazing. Sierra Pacific is a big organization that owns a lot of forest land. Currently, they own around 2.4 million acres, which puts them as the largest private landowners in the United States, which they also said comes with a lot of responsibility. And they're in California, which is one of the strictest states in all of the United States to pretty much do anything as far as business, but especially logging. So they were showing us that, to be able to log a certain area within their forest land, it's like a 500-page document that you have to get approved by multiple state agencies. So they follow every single guideline. But the interesting part is that I talked to Chad, who's one of their forest guys out in the forest when we went, and they currently cut about 1% of land that they own on a yearly basis, but they plant about 4%. Meaning they're planting, for every one tree they cut, they're planting between 3 and 4 trees. So they're actually outproducing, they're outgrowing what they're actually cutting, which is an amazing statistic, because I think when you think about a logging company or a mill company, you think they're just cutting down all these trees, but when you actually get out there and you see the vastness that's actually there, and then you hear the statistics, I think it's 7 to 9 million trees they plant a year, which means they're only cutting 1% of that number. But then on top of that, when they go to the mill, there's like literally zero byproduct or waste. So the bark gets resold for decorative bark. So after they debark the tree, the log goes into the mill. It gets cut up into dimensional lumber. So there's this whole scanning system that cuts the tree to the most efficient manner to get the maximum amount of dimensional lumber. And then any sawdust waste goes into what's called their cogen, which is their power plant. They own a power plant on the property, and it's basically this gigantic fire that creates steam that turns a turbine, and that powers the whole mill. There's mountains of sawdust, and there's a guy on a skip loader who is loading sawdust onto a conveyor belt. The scale is staggering. It's like you have to see it to believe it. And when you're there, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this exists. This is the coolest thing. When you think about a logging company, you probably think, oh, they're burning coal, or, wow, they're just absorbing energy from, the city. They're actually creating their own energy from the product that they cut down, and they're actually backfeeding more energy to the city that they belong to. So more initiatives that they do on the eco side is on the window division, which is a separate factory. They have a solar field. When I say solar field, this is an enormous field. I believe they said just over 30,000 panels. It powers the whole window factory. It powers the headquarters for the window division. And then there's also a distribution center that it powers. So that's an initiative that not a lot of companies do or will invest in that heavily. But it was kind of a no-brainer. As I was asked, I said, well, how did you guys come about? And they said it was a no-brainer. They said, we have the space, let's make the investment now and let's do it. Anyways, I wanted to share sort of the side that I learned about eco-friendly. It's even like well beyond that. The sustainability sort of is a word that gets passed along. And someone said it's interesting because sustainability is staying level. And in the case of Sierra Pacific, they're way outpacing sustainability because they're actually planting more trees than they're cutting down. And there's literally no pollution being created from their plants. That's a staggering and interesting statistic about a logging company. Everything that they do is a 100-year plan. Imagine any company you've ever worked for. The way that they operate is on 100 years, meaning when they plant a tree, they're not looking to remove that tree for 100 years. So just talk to anyone that's like in business and be like, well, how do you operate on a 100-year plan? It doesn't exist, but that's how they do it. And it's really inspiring as far as a business owner to want to sort of get to that point. I want to perform how they're performing. I want to think the same way that they're thinking about longevity. It's not about what I can do today. It's like, how is this going to be in the future? So anyways, I just wanted to share my little tidbit about that. It was really interesting. So I had the good fortune of walking around with Tom, the president of the window division at Sierra Pacific. He walked me through sort of their glass and their aluminum clad window division side. And I was able to sort of hear about the window company and how they're going to be in the future and what they're looking to do. And one of the things I talked about was their glass. So they bring in sheets of glass. They're one of the few companies that actually cut their own glass. So one of the biggest things about glass, it's dangerous, it's sharp. So they are doing, it's almost a fully automated system where it's on a conveyor belt, it cuts itself. So instead of touching multiple hands that could potentially have dangerous components to it, they automated it and made it even better. And I asked a bunch of questions about, to the plant manager, to individual station guys, hey, if you had like an idea and you brought it to your plant manager or your president, what's usually like the protocol or what's the reception to that? And every single one of them unanimously was like, oh, they want to listen and they want to know exactly how we can be better. Every single person, which was amazing. So I remember talking with the plant manager, I said, how did the painting of the interiors come about? And they said, well, we just sort of saw that like it was something being requested. And so each person, they went and dove in. They have a state-of-the-art interior painting facility now. And that was just it. It was like, this is something that we're getting requested and we think we should do better at. And they spent the money and it's now this like perfectly state-of-the-art. Same thing happened with the screens. I guess screens was one of the few components that we're still purchasing from a handful of screen vendors. And they basically said, this was sort of a cog. This was slowing production down, and it was something that just wasn't as vertically integrated as the way they like to operate. So they went and bought a screen machine. So it bends all the screens on site. They weld all the frames. It's a flex screen now. So they took a problem, which was not really a problem. It's just sort of how everyone did it. But they said, how can we make it better? And they went and invested in the best machinery and the best people to operate now the screen division. So now they make their own screens, which is I think probably the only window company in the country that does that. So these are very, very interesting where you have these conversations with people in the factory and you ask like, yeah, did you have an idea ever? And did you ever bring that up? And they said, oh, absolutely. And they will all listen. You can get a meeting with any of the heads up immediately and you want to talk about a really good idea, they're all aboard for that. That's really cool as far as like, just feeling comfortable in your space as an employee, that you feel valued, that your ideas are really valued. So it's just really cool. And Tom was super vocal about all that you could always talk to anyone at any given time. And one of the things that was just fascinating walking around with him, everyone was like, safety first, safety first, safety first. And Tom reiterated that employees are the most important thing. And you could see it. It was evident everywhere. He knew half the employees, I actually asked him, how many employees do you know? How many names? Because there's in the hundreds there. And he's like, I try to learn every single one. And they had an interesting protocol is on the first 3 months of the job, if you're new there, you wear a name tag. And they say it's for two reasons. A, they want you to know that you're new because they want everyone to collaborate and help them out. And they also want to learn your name, which I thought was just amazing. So they do that on purpose. So they can distinguish they're a new employee. They probably need advice, they need help. And apparently it's a really collaborative effort. So when you're there, if you're a new employee, you'll apparently get approached like, hey, how you doing? My name's so-and-so. What can I help you with? Looks like you're new. Do you need any advice on how to operate over here? So that was really cool. The other thing that was really, really cool about walking around with Tom, the place is very, very clean. This is a factory, a humming factory with hundreds of employees, and every walkway was super clean. And I even asked him, I was like, where does that cleanliness and that safety start from? And he said, from the owners. He's like, in every single meeting we have, the first thing we talk about is safety and cleanliness, and then we move on to other stuff. To take that level of responsibility for your employees, that you don't care about anything else except cleanliness and safety, and then you move on to the business side, that's really telling of where a company's head is at. So I loved walking around with Tom. He's a really interesting guy. He's a super smart guy. And it was super insightful to understand where the window division is going, what their motivation is, and what their priorities are. And so it just sort of tells you, you're getting an awesome product, but then when you get to learn that the people that are making it are happy, healthy, and paid well, and that the environment that they get to work in is great, that's a really cool thing. And it also makes us want to support that group better. So anyways, it was, thank you, Tom, for walking around with me. It was super fun, and hope to do it again. So we're at the R&D section of the plant.
Yep.
And what we're having done today, or what they're testing?
We're going to find out here in a minute.
So this is R&D, right? A couple of these.
Yeah. So all of these are window walls where we're doing, we're doing pressure tests, dumping rainwater on them, you know, doing positive, negative pressure,
Okay.
testing, you know, the DP rating, making sure the product performs as we designed it.
As instructed.
Yep. So even under those harsh climates.
So what are industry standards and what do manufacturers like yourself do above and beyond?
Yeah, so again, it really varies, and it can vary by local code specification.
We're in California, there's probably no hurricane, tornado. But
Exactly, yeah, you know, different codes in southern Florida and around the Gulf Coast for hurricane.
those are kind of like coastal windows usually.
Exactly. The tests that we do and emulate in these labs far exceeds, you know, the requirements for where that product is ultimately going. Customers buying this beautiful product, they want to be able to look out of it, they want to be able to open and close the doors, and most certainly they don't. They want to keep the weather out, you know, they want to keep the wind out and they want to keep the rain out.
Yeah. So I just wanted to I'm glad I got to share sort of my understanding of Sierra Pacific windows and Sierra Pacific Industries. I wanted to share why I use them, and then also that it was such a great experience for myself and my team to be able to go up to Reading, see and understand the complexities of this company and all the initiatives on being better and being more environmentally sensitive. It's really amazing because it's a company that owns so much forest land, and to understand how tactical and careful they are about each step that they do. It's really, really interesting, and it's a great company to support. I feel really good that this is the window manufacturer that I recommend, and I feel confident about doing that. And I'm very, very happy that I get to use them in my own home. They work great, they look great, and then once you understand the company behind it, it makes you feel even better. In conclusion, I hope you learned a lot about Sierra Pacific Windows. I hope you learned about the really initiatives that they're doing as a company, the amazing statistics around the company, 2.4 million acres. I can't even calculate that in my head. I can't even figure out, is that the size of Maine? I don't know. It's huge. But how careful they are and how the responsibility that they feel and they act on every day. And I got to see that firsthand. It wasn't from a marketing, material. I got to talk to some of their forest management guys. I got to talk to the mill guys. I got to talk to the window division guys. And uniformly, it's the same. They're all happy and they feel responsible and they do a really good job. I met a lot of very, very intelligent people that are dedicated to their job and they feel appreciated at their job. I was supporting the company because they were a good window before I knew all this, so it only makes my commitment to them as a buyer even better. So thank you, Sierra Pacific, for the trip, and then I hope this video reaches a lot of people and you get to understand this company and the great things that they do.